Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome on into episode 217 of the Garage Beers podcast, brought to you proudly here on the Orange and Brown Report streaming network, the OBR, the best place for Cleveland Browns coverage in all of Cleveland, the oldest, the largest independent Cleveland Browns site. Make sure you get over to the OBR.com and hit subscribe, and make sure, do like Brad Ward, our buddy Brad Ward, who just got off the air doing the react just moments ago. Brad got onto YouTube and said, hey, like and subscribe. And yeah, we agree. Make sure you are either on YouTube liking and subscribing, on Twitch hitting that subscribe button, giving out some of those, giving up some of those gifted subs that you guys like to give out. Do the whole thing, but make sure you're following along with the OBR on all the shows, because once again, the OBR on the streaming network is live 4 nights a week, and it just keeps going strong. And then you get us Tuesday nights, where it might not be the Browns coverage that you're here for, but all of Cleveland sports, all of Ohio sports, and really anything that's made any kind of major news, we're going to talk about it. That's what we do here on Garage Beers. Speaking of Garage Beers, make sure you go follow us on all of our socials as well, at The Garage Beers on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all that kind of fun stuff. Make sure you hit the follow button. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. We keep getting, every week, we just get more and more people to follow, which is really cool. Tell your friends, get them to follow, and get them watching on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock as well. With you, as always, I'm your host, Michael Keefe. Find me online at Garage Beers Mike. And joining me this week down in Nashville, Tennessee, find him online at Garage Beers Joe. It's Joey Whalen. What's up, Joe?
I think we have a snub for the Tight End University Conference here in Nashville this week.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
There's the Tight End University, I don't know if it's conference. It's just the guys that play tight end in the NFL are in Nashville this week. No Chief.
Oh, no, wait. Is this just like the guy? Why do I not know?
George
I don't
know. Like Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen. They have this the Tight End University type thing. You don't know about that?
No. What are you talking about?
I don't know if there's anything to know about. I think it's I don't know. It's been going on for a couple of years, and it's I think it was more just the school of tight ends with George Kittle and Travis Kelce. Here's how to be a good tight end in the NFL. But they do these yearly things now where they promote camaraderie with tight ends in the league. And they're in Nashville right now. And there's no David Njoku. Maybe he wasn't there last night, but he's not there now.
I'm a little nervous based on the names that you've named, that it's the white ends and not the tight ends.
No.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm going to say don't.
Well represented.
David Njoku. All right. Good. All right. Yeah. All right. I was going to say, I mean, I know it might. I don't know. Sometimes the white guys probably got to feel like they got to do more because they're not quite as athletically gifted most of the time. But
yeah, no,
I'm glad we're inclusive down there. I'm glad
general more the position and less the race.
Well, David Njoku, he doesn't need to be there. He's good enough. He's good enough. He doesn't need to be there.
He already knows.
He's resting for his Pro Bowl All-Pro season that he's about to have for the Cleveland.
Well, you know what? I mean, he did not catch the All-Pro catch of the year, the Pro Bowl catch of the year.
It's true.
So there is some work that needs to be done with Chief here.
Yeah, big work. He better get his act together. No. All right, so Nashville's got that going on. You'll notice absent from our presence here, Chad Meyer. He said he's going to pop on at some point, so who knows? I guarantee you that means he's going to be drunk as shit, and he's on vacation, and he wants to pop on just so that everybody remembers that he exists. So Chad's going to pop on at some point here tonight. If he's not drunk, I'm kicking him immediately off. He did this, I think, last year. I think last year he did it where he just popped on and he was walking up and down like a neighborhood road drunk. And I'm like, all right, well, this will be entertaining.
Well, hopefully he went to a Dogfish Head earlier today and got a couple 120-minute IPAs.
Got them all.
Worldwide stouts in the system, yeah.
Yeah, and Chad will be in rare form when he shows up. But he will show up for a little bit tonight. But again, Chad's enjoying a family vacation. He goes out to Delaware, goes out to the beach every year, and he's back on his trip, and he looks forward to it every year. So we'll catch him when he gets here. We've got a great special guest coming up. Listen, I feel like we've spent a couple of weeks in a row talking hockey. Nothing wrong with that, though, as, again, we've got game 5 tonight? Jesus. Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. Yeah. The Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. Florida looking to close this thing out. Edmonton looking to stay alive. But the Columbus Blue Jackets here in our home state and one of our favorite teams that we cover, it's just been news after news after news after news after news with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And so we have got beat reporter for the Blue Jackets, Mark Scheig, a guy that we haven't had on before. He's going to join us in a little bit. After we talk to Mark, we're going to talk about, we got to get into the Boston Celtics have just won the NBA Finals. I want to talk about where that team kind of ranks in the echelon of teams that have won the NBA Finals, because that's a really hot topic right now. Oh, Joe just left. Joe's gone. He has just zipped right out. So it's okay. I'll carry us until Joe comes back. Look at this idiot. What were you doing? And now he comes back muted. You can't hear him. He's muted.
Wi-Fi just cut out. It just absolutely froze.
I was literally sitting here just like, I don't know what's going on. So, hi, I'm back.
That's all right. We survived the 12 seconds that you were gone. We're gonna get into the NBA title and then kind of transition into the Cavs, because again, a team much like the Blue Jackets that's got a lot on their plate this offseason, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now that the NBA Finals are over, there's a lot of news going on with the Cavs and what's going on with them. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Cleveland Browns as they wrapped up their mini camp, and now we've got nothing to talk about with the Browns for the next 6 weeks. But we'll dive into what we learned from mini camp. And the Cleveland Guardians, who are trying to make a push to stay in this game against Seattle, who just jumped all over them tonight. But we'll talk about the Guardians, the most recent road trip they were on. The draft is coming up for the MLB. We got all that. We got golf. There's so much stuff that's been going on. So we're going to get into all of it. We're going to get into all of it over the course of the next hour and a half. But we're going to start with our special guest, who I see in the background here. And again, shame on us. It's the first time we've had him on, although we've been talking Blue Jackets for 4 years plus now here on Garage Beers. But I reached out to him. He was super gracious, said he would be very happy to come on with us. And as any good guest on Garage Beers, he said, "Oh, the beer has been acquired." That's how he responded to the email when I sent him the link. He said, "All right, I'm looking forward to it, boys. The beer has been acquired." I'm not going to waste any more time getting him in here. Beat reporter for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and a guy who, if you like the Jackets, if you like hockey, a guy whose name is usually going to be one of the first ones breaking news for the Blue Jackets, is going to be our special guest here tonight. Let's bring him in right now. It's Mark Scheig. Mark, welcome into the Garage Beers podcast.
Mike and Joe, I've been watching you guys for a long time. It's a complete honor to join the show finally, and let's have some fun tonight.
Dude, like I said, shame on us, because when it comes time to, and especially I'm a big local reporter guy. I like my local reporters. Well, I do that here in Cleveland. Anytime we get into one of those seasons where it's going to be either free agency or trade deadlines or whatever, you got to have your guys that you'll turn on notifications on Twitter for. And when it's that for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Mark Scheig it better be one of those guys for you. If he's not, get on Twitter and make sure you got those notifications on when it comes to those big time days, because Mark's breaking news left and right for the Jackets.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to hear that from you guys. Thank you. And that's why I couldn't wait to get on the show. As soon as you messaged me, I wasn't going to hesitate. So,
well, listen, we're going to not hesitate for the first part of our show. And it's our favorite segment that we do. No offense to you, Mark, because the interview with you is going to be great. But our favorite segment that we do every week is our Garage Beers of the Week, where we're going to go around. We're going to crack open a beer. We're going to just let you kind of tell everybody what you're drinking tonight, and then we'll pass it around the horn. So, Mark, as our special guest, why don't you kick us off with your Garage Beer of the Week?
Okay. So, I'm originally from Pennsylvania. And so what some people might not know about me is in college, I bowled, and we bowled every week. And at the bowling alley, there was always pitchers of beer available. So kind of my upbringing, I figured I'd bring onto the show tonight. And here we go right here. We've got some Yuengling.
Another classic.
Hey.
A classic, but you know what? Cheers, guys.
That was what a pop. What a pop.
Great beer crack.
Great beer crack, as some of our followers here on the show will say. That was a girthy pop for sure. 100%. Excellent pop. I can't remember, what city's Yuengling in?
They're in Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Pottsville, that's right. Yes. I randomly was in Pottsville, and I went to I was like, I got nothing to do. I'm going to go to the Yuengling factory. It was great.
Oh, nice.
It's a cool place. It's a very cool place. Yes. Although I will say, no offense to you, Mark, but Yuengling was way better when you couldn't buy it everywhere.
That's fair. That's completely 100% fair. Yeah.
The alert.
I remember I used to like every time I was in Pennsylvania, I was like, I got to come back with Yingling. I got to come back with Yingling. And then once they started selling it here, I was like, I never buy Yingling. I never get it anymore.
So once bowled a 289 after drinking a couple glasses of Yingling, and that's kind of how it became one of my go-to beers. Is I'll never forget that.
Did you say a 289?
289. Bowled the first 10 and left the 10 pin on ball number 11. Not good. Not good.
Wow. That's 200 more points than I've ever scored in bowling.
I was going to say, what do you mean not good? I'm not hitting 289 on 3 games.
Yeah, so bowling on our college team, there was some expectations on us. We actually were going to a tournament in Indianapolis. It's one of the big national tournaments. And my last game before in practice before going over was at 289. And I was just so mad. I was happy about the game, but just so mad that 11th ball was in the pocket and just left the 10 pin. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, really?
Oh. Man, we went to like, I think you got one in Columbus too. There's a Pins Mechanical. It's like a duck pin bowling place. Yeah. We were there this last weekend. My wife and kids and Joey, your mom and dad, we were there for Father's Day. And I think my top score there was like a 68. And that was at duck pin bowling. That wasn't even real bowling.
You get 3 bowls into a frame too.
Yeah. Mark, are you, just real quick, because I just saw something pop across my screen. Are you a fan of all sports? Are you a baseball guy?
Oh, very much so, yes.
So listen, we're going to do an early cheer of the week this week, because I just saw something pop across my screen, and it's huge news, and it's sad, but also what a life the guy lived. Just saw that Willie Mays, in my opinion, a top 3 all-time baseball player, one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived. Willie Mays at 93 years old has passed away. So it's sad news, but also when you read about somebody going at 93, what a life, what a legacy, and to do it in the era that he did it, when he had to fight through as much as he had to fight through. I'm going to go ahead and I think we can all probably agree that we can do an early cheers to the legendary Say Hey Kid. Even though in Cleveland, it still tears my heart out to talk about Willie Mays a little bit. And I was not even close to alive, but that catch in 1954 in the World Series against the Cleveland Indians, one of the all-time highlight plays in Major League history, one of the all-time home run hitters, one of the all-time stolen base guys, one of the all-time defenders, one of the all-time overall players. Willie Mays passed away, just got the notification. So we're going to dedicate our cheers and our beers to Willie Mays, because what a guy. What a guy.
It's got to be like a bucket list play for every like little leaguer to make.
The over the catch or the over the shoulder?
Over the shoulder catch running backwards. Like,
mine
yet.
Shout out to Willie Mays. That's huge news. And shout out to his family. Yep. Anyways, Joe, why don't you go ahead? I can see what you're drinking, but why don't you go ahead and
doing the summer shandy, boys? It's just hot. It's so hot. It was like 105 on Sunday. It was not as hot yesterday, but I'm over it already. So we're going summer beers. It's so refreshing. I feel like summer shandy too. You can only drink it out of a bottle. Like, the cans are fine. Glass is, don't waste my time with that. Bottle's where it's at.
Love that. We got some people in the comments. Serge in the comments is sipping on an old fashioned tonight. Said he had a good day. You had a good day and now drinking an old fashioned, so it's a good night. Love that. Who else? Drew in Brick City is drinking a Warped Wing plain old Pilsner. Warped Wing, I think that's an Ohio brewery. It's somewhere in Ohio. But shout out to Drew. Thank you for joining us and getting in the comments. Zeke Dog says, from the glass line tanks of Old Latrobe, 25-ounce pale American lager 33. Shout out Zeke Dog for jumping in the comments and letting us know. And be like these guys all show long. Warped Wing, sorry. Drew in Brick City says it's from Dayton. I knew it was Ohio. And that would
I love that
sense.
he always warmed up with a handful of Bush too.
Yeah, always warmed up. Our buddy Brown's Bandito drinking the Columbus Bodie. That's very appropriate as we're going to talk the Blue Jackets here. Be like all of our friends here and stay in the comments all show long. If you got some questions you want to ask Mark, jump in the comments. We'll get them up here or later in the show if you want to be part of the conversation. We always love having you. So thanks for doing that. That brings it to me. We went to Great Lakes this weekend here in Cleveland, and I grabbed this Spacewalker Hazy Double IPA. And the can art is awesome.
Look at that.
Shout out to Great Lakes for great can art, great colors, purple and teal and orange and all that.
It's very
and, I've already had half of one, so the beer glass is a little empty tonight. But it is Great Lakes. Look out for Great Lakes. They're coming up. They're coming up on these IPAs. And they're getting better and better at them. This Spacewalker, you can buy it pretty much anywhere up here in Cleveland. It's delicious. So if you like IPAs, it's an 8%er, but it feels light enough to drink on a hot summer day. Pick up a Spacewalker. It's awesome. So we got a Yingling. We got a Summer Shandy. We got the Great Lakes Spacewalker. We got all the ones in the comments. Keep throwing them in the comments. But, boys, cheers to you guys. Cheers to everybody joining us live here tonight. And now it's time for us to get into episode 217 of the Garage Beers podcast with, again, special guest Mark Scheig. Follow him online at Mark_Scheig on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. But, Mark, let's get into this. I don't know what word we want to use to describe the Blue Jackets and the offseason that they've had so far. What's the word you would use? What's the word that jumps to mind for the Blue Jackets offseason so far?
I think hectic. That would actually be a little bit of an understatement, because what has happened is only the beginning. And I actually just wrote the piece that it's not far-fetched to say that this is a new era of Blue Jackets hockey, because at this time last year, John Davidson was in the president's chair. Jarmo Kekalainen was in the GM chair. They tried hiring Mike Babcock. We all know how bad that turned out to be. They threw Pascal Vincent into the fire. So now, basically a year later, Don Waddell's in both the president and GM chair, and he's about to commence on a coaching search. And he's speaking on Thursday morning. We might get some insight as to what he might be looking for. So it's hectic, but the ride is only beginning. So it's going to get very, very interesting on the Blue Jacket side.
Yeah, and I don't think you can talk about where they're at this offseason without just a little bit of the rehash on how we got here, because for an organization that does so many things right, and I think organizationally the Blue Jackets do so many things right in a lot of different departments, ever since John Tortorella said they were going to part ways, things have gone wild from an organizational perspective when you're talking about leadership and hockey leadership, because you bring in Brad Larson, he makes it a year. He's gone. You go out there and try to find that guy. And I think, you can question why you land on Mike Babcock from a personality and a history perspective. But from a results perspective, you couldn't question a lot of Mike Babcock, because he's one of the winningest coaches in the history of the NHL. And that's what they felt like they needed at the time. And he made it 7 minutes with the Columbus Blue Jackets before he completely effed it up, and they had to go find somebody else. And then you got this poor guy, Pascal Vincent, who, he's the guy they had to bring in after Mike Babcock, and he got a year of coaching in the NHL, and that's great, but it costs Jarmo Kekalainen his job. It makes the organization say we have to have a complete shakeup. So it's just, from this one element of this organization, it's about as tumultuous of like a 3-year span as you possibly could have.
Oh, Mike, you said that beautifully. From the time that John Tortorella left the bench after the last game, you knew that he was going to be gone. They announced right after that there was a mutual parting of the ways. They brought on Brad Larson, had an okay-ish first season, so they brought him. So he's into season 2, and then things just became an unmitigated disaster. Nothing worked whatsoever. Led to his dismissal. Then they went and the whole Mike Babcock. We could have a whole episode on just how bad the Babcock situation was. They knew that the eyes of the hockey world were going to be watching the Blue Jackets as soon as they made this hire, because of the past. And what was you make a great point about a lot of aspects of the Blue Jackets are in pretty good place, but they did not do their due diligence. They asked people that thought highly of Mike Babcock. They didn't go to anybody that had bad things to say about him. So the fact that they completely ignored one of the most important things that you can do in any job search, which is due diligence, that just doomed it from the word go. Then they had to scramble to find a replacement. They got a guy that they passed on originally and just threw him into the fire. And I mean, that's one way to achieve your dream, right? Everyone wants to be a coach in the NHL. He finally gets his opportunity, so he's not going to say no. But the team was already such a mess as it was that he was under fire the whole year. You can kind of question, okay, who was he taking orders from? Was it coming from Jarmo Kekalainen, or was it coming from somewhere else? Because there were some highly questionable lineup decisions throughout the year. Don Waddell took some time to get to know him and determined that he wanted to move on from him. So it's now the 4th head coach in the Johnny Gaudreau era, and that's just 2 full seasons. Just think about how crazy that is, that he chose to come to Columbus, and now I know Babcock didn't have any games, but he technically was the head coach. This will mark number 4 as soon as they name this new head coach. They need stability, and they need it now. Wow. Hopefully Waddell brings it to them. They need to get back on the right path because there's a lot to be excited about, but until they actually get a firm direction, that's where it's going to be for the Blue Jackets. They have to get that stability they've been missing.
You know what we need to arrange? We need to arrange, Joe, up here in Cleveland especially. We need to arrange some of our friends, some of our buddies from the Cleveland Browns to maybe go give a speech to the Blue Jackets team and be like, here's how you do 4 coaches in 2 years, because we've been through it. We've done it. Cleveland Browns are experts on this. We know how to do this. We should, like Joe Thomas. Let's send Joe Thomas. We'll give him a call and we'll send him down there to do a little like pep talk. Like, this isn't that bad. Here's how you got to get through this. You guys are all going to be fine. No, it's funny because you want to talk about instability in that way, but Maddie, our friend Madigan O'Brien, Columbus Blue Jackets super fan,
yes,
says that her word for the Jackets this offseason is that it's also kind of refreshing. Like they understand, like, this isn't right, that wasn't right, and unfortunately, I think the one that's unfortunate is that it cost Jarmo his job, the way everything went down, and I think a lot of people like Jarmo, but unfortunately, it goes down the way it does. But a lot of people feel refreshed, like, hey, this team needs to realize that there's some opportunity here with all the draft picks that you brought in, these high caliber players, and then the high caliber players you already have playing on the roster. This doesn't look like a 10-year situation. This looks like, let's get our shit together, pardon my French, but let's get it together and let's go win some hockey games. And that's got to be the approach of this new regime, right?
Yeah. John Davidson said it from the word go. Experience. Someone who's been there, who's been in front offices, who's seen everything, and Don Waddell fits that. I mean, you want to talk about vibes. You want to talk about refreshing. I think I have an understanding as to why some fans would think that. I mean, there was word that Waddell actually walked into the R Bar, the bar right across from Nationwide Arena where all the fans be there. They're drinking and so much more, of course.
Mark, we've been there. We've done it. We've been there.
Oh, yeah.
We've been there.
Good times.
Would never question it with you guys, but the fact that he walked in there and actually answered questions from fans and just wanted to hang out with them, Jarmo Kekalainen never did things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll ever recall a story where he would just, don't get me wrong, Jarmo, a little bit complicated at the end with some of the decisions that he made. And there were some very questionable decisions on the roster, but there were some things that he did really well at. He's very good at scouting. In fact, I was at the Combine in Buffalo. He was there with Trevor Timmons, with Ville Siren, actually still helping out the Blue Jackets. So I think that's noteworthy because he's still under contract. So that's just the way that he's choosing to help out right now. But the fact that he was still there, still wants to help out, it says a little something about him. Not everybody would be interested in doing that, but for him, that's pretty good for him to, try to build this team. And there's just a different vibe in the early going that I really didn't feel otherwise. Because the whole year last year, and excuse my French for a second, but there was someone that actually considered the team a cluster beep the whole year.
We can say it. We're allowed to say it. Even we could say it.
Complete clusterfuck was the word that I got from somebody.
Yeah,
and we don't even know all the stories, but when somebody like that, kind of off the record, says that that's what was going on, it tells you everything you need to know about the state of the team. So you're noticing that there's a lot of change because upper management realized that there had to be a lot of change. And at least so far, there's obviously a lot that has to happen. I mean, we're only 1% of the way there. but at least in the early going, we're seeing fans happy about Don Waddell being there, happy that there's a pretty talented prospect pool that Yarmo helped build a little bit. It's just now, can they put the pieces in the right place and put the puzzle together so that they're finally going in the right direction and showing the tangible progress that everybody's been clamoring for? That's the question.
Real quick, and I want to take it back to one thing we talked about, but the Edmonton Oilers have decided they don't want to go down easily. I don't know if you guys are tracking this score, but 3-0 Oilers. They've just scored 2 goals in the span of like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And Connor McDavid just scored a goal from the goal line. Basically, he planked one off a Bob skate, and now all of a sudden, over the last 2 games, Sergei Bobrovsky has given up a lot of goals, and I know that might have some people nervous. Anyways, we'll keep tracking of that as we go along. Hey, Mark.
Yes.
I bet you got some stuff you probably can't even share with us because they probably asked you not to. But I bet you got some stories on that Mike Babcock era. Give us just like a scale of 1 to red alert as far as how crazy some of the stuff you heard that maybe you're not allowed to even repeat was during that very short era of time.
So what's the level above red alert, Mike?
Yeah.
I mean, because whatever it is, panic or whatever you want to call it, as soon as the stories about the picture started to come out, it got wild. At least is my understanding in the background, because they knew they messed up. I mean, when we walked into Media Day last year and the setup was there for Davidson and Kekalainen to speak about the situation, you could tell the anguish on their face that it completely blew up in their face. Just the approach, the way they handled it, the way that they tried to conduct the search, it just failed from the word go. And then I think the domino effect carried over into the season, and it just everything got off the tracks. But the stories that came out, I mean, I'll tell you who I feel really bad for in that situation were the captains that had to come out, and at least when they came out and did the interviews, they said, "Oh, everything's okay." I don't think they realized the full scope of what had happened. So then after everything happened, they had to come out and sort of retract and, say that, it was time to move on. It's time for the season, kind of say what you're supposed to say in that moment. But you just knew that they had to carry that. And that's a lot of pressure to have to play through, knowing that how many jobs were on the line. Is Kekalainen knew. I mean, the last year of Larson was bad. He knew that once Larson was gone, he was down to his final strike. He had to get it right. And so if you're looking at it from we need a coach that's going to really bring accountability, he openly said that he thought Babcock deserved a second chance. He put that on the record. He put his name to it. Whether who else put their name to it, don't entirely know, but ultimately Babcock was the one that got hired. And once that blew up, ownership came out and said, well, there are not going to be any other changes for now. We can still reach our goals. They were never close to reaching their goals. And I think the reason that it waited a little bit, honestly, was because Davidson had back surgery. I was in Philadelphia. Remember the game when Patrick Laine got scratched?
Yes.
As a healthy scratch. I was there, and he called that ultimately one of the most embarrassing moments of his life. But normally Davidson travels with the team. I only saw Kekalainen. Like, where's John Davidson at? Well, he had back surgery. Yeah. So I think that actually delayed the inevitable. Once Davidson was back around the rink a little bit more, that's when things picked up about the GM change, and then knowing that they had to get this thing exactly right. And so that's why they waited a long time to get to Waddell, because he was still in the playoffs with Carolina. Once he became available, he was on expiring contract. It was an easy move for them to make to get that experience in. But going back to your question about the Babcock thing, high red alert, just problems everywhere. And I think there were some young guys that were really concerned about what would have happened if he would have stayed. That's
glad
that we don't have to figure it out.
And that's a problem.
Yes, exactly.
That's a problem when the majority of your team is young guys. No, I remember we had Todd Chirac is such a good friend of ours here. And I remember when we had him on, and he is so cool with us all the time. It was like the one time when we had him on where he was like, listen, we're going to address this and we're going to move on. And I was like, all right, yeah. It's cool. Like, it's fine. We're not here to be like hard hitting journalists, whatever. We're here to have a good time. But it was the one time where he was like, let me just address it and let's move on. I don't want to talk about it for an hour.
Absolutely.
It was so painful for everybody.
Top to bottom. No question about it.
Put so many people in bad situations, and like you almost need a full season to go by before you can actually go through and start rebuilding that. Like there has to be a period of hurt after something as crazy as that happens.
Yep.
And the hope is that we had that period of grievance and self-reflection as an organization, and now we're in a position to be like, okay, let's hit the full reset here. Like
stages of grief. Stages of grief.
Stages of grief.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Mark, while we're talking about coaches, obviously that's the thing on everybody's mind, right? There's so much fun stuff coming up for the Blue Jackets. They've got another incredibly high draft pick. I mean, when you think about the wealth of talent the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to have added over the last few years through the draft, when you include this year, it can only get you excited. And when you see what these kids did with the Cleveland Monsters this year, making the run that they went on, and the kids that made an impact up with the big club in Columbus, man, you have to be excited. So I want to talk a little bit about players, but the first thing that everybody wants to talk about is the coach. Yes. And I've heard Don Waddell talk about coaching a little bit and talk about just getting into it. And obviously that's it's the beginning of a process for them. But Mark, when you think about what you think the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to be looking for in their next head coach, what are the things, what are the attributes that you think they're going to be looking for in the right guy, finally, after a lot of not right guys, in getting the right guy to lead this team to where they can go?
This is going to be the most boring answer ever. They need a boring coach. Literally. They need someone who has seen it all, has the experience, knows how to run a bench, knows how to handle both young players in terms of maximizing their development while making sure they're putting the veteran players in a position to succeed. So at the top of my list is going to be experience. And that's going to point to, there's a few guys out there that could potentially be available if they want to go explore that route, like a Todd McClellan, like a Gerard Gallant. I even heard Bob Hartley's name, somebody that Don Waddell knows actually quite well that could be interested in coming back to the NHL. He won a cup with Colorado way back when. So there's a lot of interesting names out there, but it'll be really curious to see what he ultimately values. And maybe come Thursday morning when we talk to him, that we'll start to get a little bit of a sense on what characteristics he's looking for in a coach. But it would be shocking to me if they go after a first-timer, because what was Brad Larson? A first-time head coach. What was Pascal Vincent?
Yeah,
first-time head coach. So that's 2 in a row. That tells me that they're going to go after someone who's been there, who's done that, who's seen it all, who knows how to manage a bench, who knows how to manage the personalities. You have to have all of that in order to succeed. So the fact that Waddell made the move to move on from Pascal Vincent tells me that he feels like that there's an element on the team missing, and that there's going to bring someone in that's going to fill in those missing gaps.
Mark, here's a question I should be able to answer, but I'm an idiot. How long have you been covering hockey?
So I've been in this position since 2014. So this will be season 11 coming up next season.
Okay. So you're not allowed to steal this question during the Waddell press conference unless you say this is from the guys at the Garage Beers podcast, and then in which case that would be really cool in that setting. Otherwise, you have to let us ask him because we're working that too. But
deal.
Here's my favorite question to ask in these situations, and I've asked this with the Browns a lot, and I've asked this with the teams that I like a lot because I like a lot of teams that have struggled with losing a lot. Mm-hmm. But losing is a culture. Losing is deeper than the players on the ice. Losing is deeper than the coach on the sideline or in the box. Losing is deeper than who the general manager is. Losing is a culture, and so is winning. And that's why you see these teams year in and year out who have this winning culture that maybe have a losing roster, but still somehow find a way to win hockey games.
Right.
Because winning is a culture. The Columbus Blue Jackets have done an incredible job of putting good players on the ice. I mean, they just have a set of good players, and there's been problems here or there, but good players on the ice and guys that you can be excited about and coaches you can be excited about and GMs you can be excited about. What I want to know is, how do you defeat a losing culture? Like, what do you want to hear from Don Waddell that says, and I think he probably, of all guys, probably has a really good answer for this because he beat a culture that was going that losing path in Carolina and brought them back to where they are. How do you could do all the other stuff right, but how do you get rid of a losing culture? How do you think he should answer that question?
I think that he has to start, and he's already said this, but I think he has to reiterate it. He needs to reiterate the fact that everybody needs to be pulling in the same direction. Like, everybody on that staff needs to have one vision, one goal, and just go after it. Whether it ultimately works out or not at the end, that's a whole different discussion. But I just think that there were just so many, I don't want to know if it's personalities or just ideas or trying to pull one way while someone was pulling another way. Like, for example, there's a little bit of a mixed message. Like, the Blue Jackets had a goal of making the playoffs, but they really didn't have the roster given how young they were in order to do all that. So it just felt like that on one level of the organization, they were trying to win and get in the playoffs. But at the coaching level, they were trying to develop them, and playoffs weren't a thing. But if you're answering from above, even if you have thoughts on the way that you want to coach, if you're answering to somebody, you have to change kind of on the fly. And I just don't think everybody was on the same page. And that just automatically sets up a losing culture when you have competing mindsets going against each other. So what I want Waddell to say Thursday and beyond to defeat this is, step one, put the right people in the right places that are going to work as a team, be clear with your messaging, and then start to address, the roster, find out who wants to be there, who wants to be a Blue Jacket, make the necessary changes, and then do the little winning thing. 'Cause, in order to build a winning culture, it takes time, especially when you're the Blue Jackets that have had losing season after losing season, going all the way back. In order to get that, and there's an element of needing the roster. You have to have good players in order to do that. But you need to have leaders. You need to have the right coaching in place to put them in position to succeed. It's a bunch of little things that make the whole thing go. And I don't think in recent times they've had that. So Waddell needs to say, we're going to have the right people in the right places in order to do that. And then they have to commit to it. And I think that's the biggest part of it, where if things kind of go off the rails, they need to be able to show some steadiness in order to stick with it, build those winning habits. As if I want them to be able to be in a position in 3 to 5 years to say, all the little things that we did today contributed to our success later on. That's what happened in Carolina. That's what he's hoping to replicate in Columbus. It's not going to be overnight, but they have to be willing to put in the work. And it's going to be grunt work, but they have to be willing to do it.
Mark, it's 25 years. Like, that's what I want to hear from this guy is, it's 25 years of either losing or being a team where your success is defined by making the playoffs.
Yep.
I'm so tired of it. No, and you cover the team, and the poor people that work for the team, and these poor fans that have been fans of the Blue Jackets longer than I have, and I'm tired of it. Nobody's trying to make the playoffs. If that's the goal, then we're not doing this right. You got to figure out how to build a Stanley Cup contending team. That's the only goal. It's the only option. I'm tired of celebrating a playoff, making the playoffs. I'm tired of celebrating. How many playoff series has this team won since they've existed? 2?
1.5, if you count the bubble as a half.
I'm going to give them the bubble one, but but 2. That's 2. We don't need to. Let's not take one away from them. In 25 years, Mark, it's been 2. They got to figure this out, and that's That's the key, and that's what I want to hear out of Waddell, and that's what I want to hear about whoever they pick as the coach, and that's what I want to start hearing out of the players. Forget this let's make the playoffs nonsense. Forget this, oh, let's just be okay, and yay, if we win a couple playoff games, it'll give us a reason to celebrate. The Columbus Blue Jackets have not contended for a Stanley Cup in 25 years. They have never one time been a contender. Never, not once. That has to change. And that's what I'm looking for out of these guys.
They've never finished even second place in a division in their entire existence. Just let that marinate for a second.
Yeah.
Even in the 108-point season when they won 16 in a row, they got the third place because the two teams ahead of them in their division finished ahead of them, lost in the first round of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The previous regime always said, oh, our goal is to win a cup.
Yeah. Okay.
Really? And they did not do enough in order to back the words up here. So, yeah, to your point, there needs to be accountability from the top. There needs to be accountability from the players. Mediocrity is not good enough. I want someone to be able to step up and say, we're not going to take this anymore. I mean, Adam Fantilli, think about this for a second. Since we're on the topic of going from a winning culture at Michigan to coming into the first season with the Blue Jackets, his season abruptly ended due to that injury, then having to go through all that losing. Let this marinate too. There's a couple guys like Zach Werenski, I know, is bothered by the losing. I've been talking to him many times. We've had some pretty interesting conversations, but you could tell that it bothers him. It bothers Boone Jenner. So the Erica Branson, Sean Corrali, it bothers the leaders. But then how about everybody else, though? And Adam Fantilli last year actually showed me that the losing already bothers him, and he was a rookie. He's destined for greatness. And that's why I think it elevates him to a level of not only is he going to be exciting on the ice, he's going to take losing personally. And quite frankly, there's a bunch of guys in that locker room that need to follow his lead.
All right, Mark, before we let you out of here, let's just talk a little bit about the players and some of the news and some of the things you're hearing, again, as not many people have more of an inside ear for what's going on with the Jackets than you do. So obviously the big name that everybody's going to be talking about until they make a move is Patrick Laine. And obviously the Laine season was not what he envisioned, obviously not what the Blue Jackets envisioned. He missed the majority of it with a lot of different things that he had to battle and go through. And then we had some weird things with fans, and the whole thing kind of was ugly. And hopefully Laine is feeling better on a mental level and a himself level, and that should never get lost. But it also got reported by you and others that Patrick Laine and the Blue Jackets are going to be kind of seeking a separation. He feels like he can probably find himself a little better elsewhere, and the Blue Jackets sound like they're going to be willing to accommodate that request from Patrick Laine. So anything new to report on that, or is that kind of summed up pretty well?
Pretty good. Just add that it's important to note in the Laine situation that apparently the request came while Kekalainen was still there. And Waddell admitted that, you talked to, shout out, I think you've had Brian Hedger on the show before, another great reporter for the Blue Jackets. He had a conversation with Waddell, and Waddell admitted that he hadn't even talked to Laine yet, that he was trying to reach out to him through his agent. Whether that conversation has happened or not, maybe we'll find out on Thursday. That's something else that we can dig into. But from all indications, it does sound like that he's asked for it. He wants a fresh start. I mean, you guys said he had a really rough year last year.
Yeah.
Hope that he got the help that he's looking for. Losing his dad, going through all the struggles on the ice, a lot of injuries too. And don't forget how much of a toll that takes on somebody who wants to be able to perform at a top level and not be able to do so. So maybe getting away from the Blue Jackets will give him the fresh start that he's looking for.
It can be amicable too, right? Like it's not from a fan. I think from a fan and a conversation perspective, it just doesn't need to turn ugly. It can be, hey, the Blue Jackets probably should move on from Patrick Laine at this point, especially after the last couple of years of what he's given you. And that's fair to say. And there's a lot of underlying, but it's also, we don't need to be jumping down this guy's throat being like, oh, we don't like this guy or he's selfish. No, it's not working here. And that happens in a lot of places, in a lot of circumstances. It's not working here. There's not a real good reason, unless Waddell can get to line A and make him really believe in what he's trying to build here. There's not a real good reason to take a guy that maybe doesn't want to be here and try to force him to be here, right? Like, let's realize that it can be amicable and beneficial on both sides.
There is a win-win trade possibility if it comes down to that. The contract, even though there's 2 years at $8.7 million left, is not that hard to move because there are teams that can either take on the full hit or with some salary retention, and the Blue Jackets can get a now help kind of player, whether it be like another younger player that is looking for a change of scenery would be one example, or someone who has been struggling and is also looking for a fresh start, and maybe Columbus can give that to him. But there's more than one way to get it right, and it'll be one of the first big tests Waddell has to do, because trading Patrick Laine, let's not forget, not the season before last, he was a point-a-game player, even though he's been through a lot of struggles. He still has a lot to give and is only 26 years old. There will be teams that are interested in him.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to have to decide about the contract, but it's really not that hard to move. And the Blue Jackets can still find – they might not win the trade, but they can get something serviceable back.
Talk about another huge position that the Blue Jackets have to address, and that's goalie. Elvis Merzlikins consistently now in talks as far as what's going to happen with him and trade destinations and where does he want to be and all that. What are you kind of hearing on and I know that's you're probably not hearing a whole heck of a lot because Don Waddell's been on the job for about 7 minutes. But what's your thought process on the trajectory for the Blue Jackets and Elvis Merzlikins?
They have to decide if he fits in the locker room. That's going to be the biggest question, whether it be seeking a trade, if they want to keep him for going into the year, maybe even going down the buyout route, but they have to determine if he's a fit in that locker room. And that's something that will develop over the summer. We'll see where it ends up going. Yeah, you're right. We really don't hear a whole lot about that at this point, considering how new he is, but that's the question they have to answer with him. Is he's proven he can be a good goalie, but the last few years in Columbus, I wanted to see him at the World Championships do well. He didn't do well there either. You just kind of wonder where he's at overall. But they have to decide what do they want to do. Do they want to make that locker room has to be in a good place? And if he's in a position where it might be splitting a couple players, they may have to make a decision on him. So a lot more to come on that one, but that's the big question.
All right, a couple quick ones before we let you out of here, Mark. Who's a guy we're not talking about enough? Who's a name that we should be talking about this offseason? Everybody's going to be talking about Merzlikins and everybody's going to be talking about Laine, but who's a guy we're not talking about enough that we should maybe have our eye on?
Well, Jake Bean's probably one. Waddell traded him to Columbus before, and now he's an RFA again, and Don Waddell's back, so. Given that Denton Matejchuk, David Juracek are knocking on the door to the NHL, you've got Werenski and Severson, and Ivan Provorov is another one too that will be very interesting to watch. Perhaps he starts the year at the Blue Jackets. Is he a trade deadline casualty with 1 year left and all those defensemen on the way back? So Bean and Provorov on defense certainly need to be watched. I hate to bring the name up. I'm not reporting anything. I'm going to stress that right now. Johnny Gaudreau, how happy is he with the way the first couple of years have gone? He's got a no-move clause. All indications he's happy with living in Columbus. Having his family there has been great, but the on-ice product has not been good. At the end of season last year, it sounded like that he was committed to Columbus. He reiterated the love for the city and trying to get things to work. Does he still feel that way? Maybe you watch that situation. But there's a lot, and then the contracts. So like Cole Sillinger needs a new contract. Kirill Marchenko needs a new contract. There are others as well. But Waddell has to start making decisions on who to sign, who to trade, and those are some of the names that we have to watch.
All right, my last question. And then I'm gonna surprise you with something at the at the end here. But my last question: how about guys? Names from elsewhere. Are there any names that you have on your radar around the NHL that you think are going to be targets for the Columbus Blue Jackets this offseason?
I really haven't dug into that one too much yet because my focus has been on the draft. Being at the combine and getting ready with the number 4 overall pick. That's where most of my focus has been. But as a general overall, I think they could use a veteran presence or two just in different parts of the lineup, especially up front with a lot of the young talent that they have, just to be able to stabilize them, kind of show them the ropes when things kind of get off the rails, have somebody back there to be a little bit of a calming influence. So I would think that maybe 1 to 2 guys in that range to be able to bring some stability to the oodles of talent that they have should be something that the Blue Jackets should target during this offseason.
All right, Mark, here's my surprise. Here's my surprise for you.
Okay.
From Delaware, a man that's on vacation and a man that's a man that's a man that's probably had a whole bunch of drinks today. So get ready for it, Mark.
Okay.
But our main guy here, our third host, he has jumped in and he wanted to come in and he is the biggest hockey guy I know. And I know he's probably got 1 or 2 things that he really wants to ask you, although if he repeats anything, I'll slap him. Let's bring Chad in. Chad, what's going on from Delaware?
How the hell are we? What's going on?
Chad, dude.
I've had beers. What's happening, Mark?
What's happening? Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Sort of. Nice to see you, sort of.
Kind of.
It's Shadow Chad.
Well, listen. There's a lot of uplighting in this back porch that I'm very thankful for that you can't see me. But I'm a bunch of beers in as the kids have finally gone to bed. So, yeah, I'm here, fellas. How we doing?
Cheers.
We're good. Hey, listen, Chad, I don't want to keep Mark forever. So if you've got any, I don't know how long you've been listening. We talked about all the big stuff, so don't say anything stupid. But if you got anything, any last minute stuff for Mark, any last minute stuff to talk Blue Jackets with Mark Scheig, this is your time.
Yeah, Mark, I want to talk about what are they going to do with the Line A situation? No, how do you lose it? How do you change culture? I'm sure Mike asked you about culture.
He definitely asked about that. Yep.
No, Chad, that was really good.
That was good.
No, of the names being thrown around, because I saw a few today. Mm-hmm. And when I look at these guys, none of them make me go, "Oh yeah, I would love them." Like the Jay Woodcrofts of the world, the Todd McClellans of the world, the Jeff Blashills of the world. Do any of those names excite? I know you. I know. I'm sure you share the same sentiment I do. I need somebody with experience. I don't want a first-time head coach.
Yep.
They started it off right because I wanted a GM with experience, and they got him. But these coaches left with experience. They don't make me go, "Oh yeah, sweet, I want that guy." But they also don't make me go, "No, not at all." Like, are there any of those type of guys out there that's like you give a chance to?
Chad, I like how you said that because I told them that I'm going to give you the most boring answer in the world. They need boring. They need boring.
Right.
Because of who they've hired in the past. The last 2 were first-time head coaches. That did not work out. They tried to go after the ultimate one with experience who has baggage. That didn't work out either. So from one extreme to the other, someone in the middle is who's seen it all, who knows how to run a bench, who knows how to handle personalities, who knows how to deploy players properly. Yeah. That's what they need. And if it's a little bit boring, that's exactly what the doctor ordered right now.
Okay.
So a couple of those names that you mentioned, I think very much are in play. The one name that I threw out there that Waddell is who's familiar with and has won a Stanley Cup and is a veteran coach is somebody like Bob Hartley. Just kind of wonder if they look on that road too. But.
Okay. All right. What do you think about Trent Vogelhuber? You think he's a sleeper or is that he's not ready yet?
Give him a couple years. Very much an up-and-coming name. The way I was in Hershey for the Monsters Game 7, and we talked to him after the game.
Yeah.
My God, you want to talk about handling stuff with class and wearing emotions on the sleeve? Trent Vogelhuber. Everyone bought into Trent Vogelhuber. And there were guys that were 10 years in the league said they had the most fun ever playing hockey under Trent Vogelhuber.
Nice.
Cool.
He's a name to watch. It's just he might try to explore some job possibilities, like as an assistant or things like that. But little too early for NHL, but a name to watch later.
Cool. I'm so excited to watch him as your next head coach of the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah. I saw
super great. Super great.
I saw he cried. What a pansy.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. All right, Mark Scheig, hey, we're going to let you go, man. We wanted to let Chad say hi to you, but this was awesome. Again, I'm sorry it took 4 years for us to do this, but it will not take 4 years for us to do this again. We appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you having a beer because that is the most important thing, and we appreciate all of your insight. And frankly, outside of what you did with us here tonight, we appreciate all of your insight and the hard work you put in to covering the Blue Jackets and giving some of the best Blue Jackets coverage you're going to get. Make sure you go follow Mark Scheig on Twitter at Mark_Scheig. And Mark, we appreciate you. We'll catch up with you down the road.
Boys, it was a complete honor. Thank you for the time. Appreciate the words. Keep up the good work yourself.
Awesome.
Man, Mark Scheig. Awesome. So good to have him on. I was going through Twitter, boys. I was going through Twitter and I don't even want to tell her. I'm not even going to bring up what's happened over the last couple of days because it's been rough with the guest situation. But I'm not bringing it up. But I'm going through Twitter and Mark is just throwing out like just great tweet after great. And I'm like, how have we not had Mark Scheig on the show before? True. And I'm telling you, I messaged him and like 72 seconds later, it was like, boom, I'm in. And I'm like, all right, sweet. Let's go.
Yeah.
Done. Yet another phenomenal Blue Jackets person that we can reach out to anytime. Mark Scheig, again, go follow him on Twitter at Mark Scheig, and make sure, again, as free agency pops up and the draft, anytime there's big Jackets news that's ready to pop, make sure you hit the button on Twitter that gives you the notifications for Mark, because he's always going to be one of the first persons or one of the first people that pops news for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, Chad, it's so good to see you, dude. What are you drinking?
You too. I am drinking a beer from. I don't know if you can see it. Probably can't.
Nope. Nobody can see it. Nobody can see shit.
It's from Big Oyster Brew. It's called Noir et Bleu. That's what they called it. I'm sure they speak it with an unruly French accent. It's a Belgian triple, and it's 9%, and I'm just feeling it really good. Outside, I'm sitting here drinking a 9% beer, watching a slug currently climb up the fence. It's kind of gross.
Is that the brewery you were at with the playground?
Yeah, man.
Man, I'm telling you, if anybody wants to get involved on an investment level, I will run it. I'll run the damn business. It's the greatest business idea of all time. A good brewery with good beer. It's got to be good and good beer and good food and a playground.
Yeah.
That's fenced in and secure, and you can just leave your kids. Just go, play, and drink, and have fun.
Not only does it have a playground, it had Connect 4, it had cornhole boards, it had a fucking basketball court. That's
great. Playoff. Here's a 9%er, and I'm going to go start shooting free throws.
Dude, listen, I thought I was fucking Kobe or Michael out there doing reverse layups underneath the backboard. It was sick. It was a sick brewery.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Chet. I don't know how long are you going to stay with us. You going to hang with us for the next half hour?
Yeah, sure. Why?
Hell yeah.
Why not?
All right. We got some quick hitter topics to cover. I meant to ask Mark about this, but I'll ask you guys. We're about to end the second period in this Edmonton, Florida series. In Game 5, Edmonton comes out and just jumps on Florida. Yeah. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky looks shook by the way Edmonton has attacked these last couple of games. And tonight they have scored 4 goals, including some ridiculous. The goal by McDavid is one of it might be the goal of the playoffs.
It was beautiful.
And then the assist on the next goal by McDavid is maybe the assist of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Edmonton comes out, jumps on Florida. They're up 4-2 at the end of the second. So let's just really quickly hit on this, and then we'll go over to other sports and asshole of the week and all that. Boys, how we feel? Okay. Let's say Edmonton wins this game. Let's say they hold on. They don't give up 3 goals unanswered to Florida in the third period. And this thing's going to transfer back to Edmonton for Game 6. How are we feeling about this series that Florida started 3-0?
First of all, McDavid splits double teams like a hot knife goes through butter, dude.
Yeah, unbelievable.
He just does it. And Edmonton, and this is exactly the same thing that happened in the last series with Edmonton. With Dallas, they went down. They looked like they had no business being there. Then all of a sudden, Knobloch, their head coach, makes adjustments, and now all of a sudden, Florida doesn't get a shot on net for 12 minutes, or they start pinching their defensemen and cutting off shooting lanes and passing lanes and playing incredible defense. So yeah, like Edmonton is if they hold on to win this game, which it looks like very much that they will, Edmonton's all the way back in it, man. There's no way. And boy, oh boy, is Matthew Tkachuk's guarantee looking like a real asshole so far. He guaranteed a victory. He went Mark Messier and guaranteed victory this game. Maybe should have just let it play out, pal.
What's up with people being up in series and just being like really bad juju, like hockey?
Yeah, right. What are you doing?
Just don't say anything. Just win the game.
Stupid. It's dumb as hell. That's dumb as hell. Yeah, listen, again, it's kind of the same thing we talked about last week, Chad, when I talked about the NBA series, and now this year it's like they don't want to come back. Like if your philosophy, if your Edmonton is Florida doesn't want to come back to Edmonton, it always reminds me of what LeBron said about the Warriors in that series in 2016. They don't want to come back to Cleveland. They don't want to come back to Cleveland.
Right.
And Golden State had to come back to Cleveland. They got their asses kicked, and then they lost in Game 7. Yeah. Florida doesn't want to go back to Edmonton. But, man, it looks like Edmonton's going to force that.
Yeah. Looks
it's
like
wild.
they are.
It's wild. It is wild because Edmonton, we've talked about this the whole time. I don't want to spend 20 minutes on this, but we've talked about this the whole time. It is probably the least deep team out of the last 8 teams that remained in the NHL playoffs. They're the least deep team, but also the most top-heavy team. And I'm telling you tonight, in this game, Connor McDavid has been LeBron James. He has been Michael Jordan. He has just been – he's been so good that he is better by himself than the other team's line. He is just one guy better than the top line of the other team. And that's what he's doing in this Stanley Cup Finals right now.
Yeah, and not to mention when that top-heavy type talent plays with the urgency that they're playing with, it's incredible to watch.
Yeah. So, it's going to be really interesting to see if the Edmonton Oilers can send this thing back to Canada, or again, I will say Florida showed tremendous fight in that second period. Edmonton scored a couple goals, and the Florida Panthers answered those goals. And so instead of it being a worse situation, it's 4-2. It's also not going to surprise me at all if Florida comes out in that third period in front of their home crowd and just goes crazy. So we'll see what happens.
That surprised me a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, it might surprise you a little bit.
The way you've been playing today, I don't know.
All right, we're on a time frame here. So, Joe, let's get into Asshole of the Week. When Chad comes back, he can jump in, or we can just go into the next topic. But let's jump into our Asshole of the Week. I'm going to let you lead it off, man. Who is your Asshole of the Week this week, Joey?
So many assholes this week. I'm going to go with the most recent Asshole of the Week, and that's the Fanatics team shop. How long have the Guardian City Connect jerseys been out? Month and a half?
Yeah.
Early May came out? Still not.
May 17th or something.
Still not restocked anywhere.
Oh, that's total assholery.
None. It's the last hole. I really want one so bad. And I've been literally checking like 3 times a week for this stupid website to restock, and they just won't do it. And I hope they do at some point. But
all right.
I just hate Fanatics and everything that they produce and stand for. And they're still going to take my money because they have a monopoly. I don't know what else.
Total assholes. Chad, what about you? Got an asshole of the week?
What was it? City Connect? What are you waiting for?
Yeah, I want the City Connect jersey.
They still haven't restocked.
Restocked.
Boo.
I literally had one in my cart day one. I was like, I'm going to give it a day, make sure I want to buy this, and then it was gone. And then,
oh man, you missed out, man. Like I think I saw a thing that said like 44% off.
Those are the Chinese ones. We may have bought that for my father-in-law.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, got it.
But he's got it. He's got one.
Hey, Bandito.
Look at. He's happy about it. He's got one. He's got one.
It's the best. It's the best jersey a 12-year-old can sew.
No, you know what it is? It's the same quality as like a giveaway. It's like that T-shirt jersey quality.
Yeah.
Whatever. He wears it. He loves it.
I totally have an asshole. It's fucking Landon Donovan. Have you seen this goddamn haircut on this guy?
Oh yes. What is
I was
this?
just thinking about Landon Donovan today.
Him and his hair transplant specialist that fucking told him that it wouldn't show up on camera. What the hell is that? It looks like the first guy that tried to like have a comb over with his sideburns.
Oh
like,
no!
It's like it's like the first guy that like I don't know.
Yes, I'll take the Martin Van Buren.
Yeah, he looks like a rabbi that just matted down his curls on his sides, and he's just bald underneath the cap.
Oh shit!
Like what an asshole! This hair transplant guy in Salinas.
Holy
Landon,
smokes!
like maybe put but like Landon's not as big of an asshole as this. Like, dude, maybe put a hat on. I don't know. Maybe put a hat on. That's it.
Oh, yeah, it's fair. It's fair. Oh, Joe, I think Joe's trying to share a picture of this right
Can you see it?
No, well, you got. Oh, hold on, we got to add it. Hold on.
Yeah,
there it is.
Look at that.
Oh,
no. What happened?
That's so weird.
What happened?
That's so weird.
Oh my God. All right. Landon Donovan, asshole. All right, my asshole of the week. My asshole of the week is going to go to some random Twitter account, and there were a few of these. First of all, there was one guy, and I realized he's a Tigers Twitter guy, so now I realize he was just trying to start shit. But there's this guy on Tigers Twitter that says, this isn't even my asshole of the week, but he made a tweet this week that just said, imagine how good Jose Ramirez would be if he would be in baseball shape and the team would hold him accountable. And it was just a rage bait post for Cleveland. And he's like, Jose Ramirez is a borderline all-star every year. And he's borderline whatever. But imagine if he would actually dedicate himself to the craft. And I wanted to fucking throw my phone across the room. I was pissed. And then I realized it was a Tigers person just trying to rage bait, and it was winning, and I didn't want to give into it. So my real asshole of the week goes out to this Twitter account called Schneeth Johnson. Schneeth. SCHNEATH Johnson, who is like a verified Twitter account, although I don't think he has any followers.
He paid.
But he went to the US Open and he went into a porta potty and then he videotaped himself pissing all over the porta potty.
All right.
On the walls, on the seat itself, on the floor, everywhere. What a douchebag. What an absolute douchebag. What are you doing? First of all, when he went into the porta potty, it might be the cleanest porta potty I've ever seen in my whole life. Like, it was comfortable. It was like a comfortable, clean porta potty. He pissed on the door handle. It should be a fucking crime. It should be a crime. It was on the door handle. On the door handle. Dude. Somebody's going to touch that.
And
that should be a crime. Too? Yeah, he posted it. Actually, it probably is a crime. I hope the dude got arrested. I don't know. Just what the internet is making you idiots do idiot things. No, it's not. You getting 27 likes on a video is not worth the shit that you're doing, you stupid asshole. Stop doing things to get internet famous. That is my message. And I'm a guy that does a podcast, and I'm trying to be internet famous because of this fucking podcast. But I'm doing something fun that some people enjoy. What are you doing pissing on a door handle that my kid might touch? What a dick. What a dick. What a dick. Total asshole.
Man, you're burnt up already about it. You're burnt up all over again.
It's a birthmark. Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Oops.
Leave me alone.
Bad.
That was my asshole of the week. Schneeth Johnson is a piece of shit. And an asshole, and that's my asshole of the week. Those are our assholes of the week. All right, here's what we got. We got 22 minutes of quick hitters, and we're going to make it quick hitters because we got to get Joey out of here at 10:30, and we're going to do that, and we're going to end the show at 10:30. So let's do quick hitters. Let's go over to the biggest news really in the sports world outside of today, which was the Boston Celtics.
Do we have to?
Yeah. Here's what I want to know. Here's all I want to know. Here's the only discussion I want to have. the Boston Celtics handle the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. They blow out the Mavericks in Boston last night. Like, I got to tell you, I watched that game, and the one thing I was jealous of was that it was the most stress-free atmosphere to just celebrate a title you've ever seen in your whole life.
Nice.
Like, the Dallas Mavericks were not involved in that game from the beginning. The Boston Celtics just came out and dominated that game. The people that were at that game never worried about a damn thing. They were just there to party. And I was jealous. I was jealous about that.
Yeah.
But here's the conversation that's come from it. The Boston Celtics go 16-3 through the playoffs. They beat the Miami Heat in 5 games. They lose 1. They beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games. They lose 1. They sweep the Indiana Pacers in 4 games. And then they beat the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. They lose 1. And so people are starting to talk about how great is this Celtics team in the echelon of great teams that have won titles. And I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this because I have a thought.
I'm the complete opposite. I think that this was like the weakest team to win a finals ever. Like I don't feel like the Celtics had quite the gauntlet that might have come out of the West. I think that they ran into a pretty battered up Mavericks team by the time they got to the finals.
Who was battered up?
I don't know. Just everyone's kind of battered up in the finals. I don't know.
They all played.
Luka was basically mummified in ace bandages, and ice packs. So they were battered
Luka's
up.
a bitch.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
But he's the only. Him and Kyrie are the only 2 that matter on that Mavericks team.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. It's a weird year. We're in a transition period in the NBA where like you have the superstars of yesterday are, nearing retirement and heading out, and now it's the era of the new superstars that aren't defined quite yet. And I think that's an interesting period because it's really tough to judge how good a team is when you don't have that consensus pick of superstars in the league anymore.
That's what I think about the Boston Celtics.
Well, yeah.
I think they belong in the conversation. Maybe not of the greatest teams of all time or whatever, but I think they belong in the conversation of greatest playoff teams of all time. The run they went on was incredible, and you could talk about who they beat, and the Cavs, the Miami Heat went without Jimmy Butler for a minute, and that sucks. And the Cleveland Cavaliers went without Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen. And certainly, I think if the Cavs were healthy, they would have taken 1 more game from the Celtics. The Indiana Pacers, the last 2 games of their series didn't have Tyrese Halliburton. I don't think that would have mattered. I think the Boston Celtics were built for winning a title, and they went and did it. And I think one thing that's getting lost in this whole conversation is you have to give credit to Brad Stevens for going, hey, this team we had last year that was kind of supposed to win the title wasn't good enough. And he got rid of Marcus Smart, and he got rid of a couple other players, and he brought in Drew Holiday, which was an upgrade to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And he brought in the trade that they made a couple years ago for Derek White. Unbelievable. And they bring in Kristaps Porzingis, who has been phenomenal for them. Like, just what they did this year. I think there's a lot of haterade being drunk by a lot of people, but like, man, I think what they did this year was absolutely spectacular. I think what they did was spectacular. They were the best team from day one until the end of the season. No team was ever better than the Boston Celtics. And so just by that metric alone, and yeah, you could talk about who are they playing and what, blah, blah. By that metric alone, from day one, you were the best until the last day when you won the title. That puts you in the conversation.
Sure.
It puts you in the conversation.
Sure. Greatest playoff runs? Sure. Greatest run? One of the greatest runs? Sure. One of the greatest teams? No. They don't. They're nowhere near that right now. Because of all of the greatest teams did it multiple times within the window that they've had. So
it's one of the greatest seasons that any team has ever had.
Yeah.
Can you argue that?
Sure.
I don't think you can argue
one
that.
One of the greatest seasons, sure. Like if you single it out to this season, yeah, sure, it's one of the greatest. But no, it's they're not anywhere near like one of the greatest teams of all time until they do it multiple times.
Well, but there was also this thing that came out and it was like, are they one of the best Celtics teams of all time? And I'm like, yeah, of course they are. They've won 18 titles, and that's the most of any team in NBA history. But that means in the 100-year history or whatever it is of the Celtics, only 18 of them have won a title. That makes them one of the greatest.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. Can we stop talking about
top
Boston
20%
sports now?
I don't know why the hate is there. All right, real quick.
Boston.
I wanted to transition into the Cavaliers.
Mike's transition.
Because a lot similar to what we talked about with the Blue Jackets with Mark Scheig is going on with the Cavaliers. And there's two things that are big going on. One, and maybe this is just like LeBron PTSD, but I don't believe now I feel like every time a player does something, it has a purpose, right? I feel like when players do things, it's with a purpose. That's why I think LeBron does things. That's why I think everybody does things. I think the exciting thing, if you're a Cavaliers fan, is it sounds every indication is they're going to sign Donovan Mitchell to this extension, and it sounds like it's probably going to happen in the next couple of days.
Right.
Like, sounds like they were able to start negotiating the minute the game ended last night, and it sounds like they had like a verbal thing in place right off the bat.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, that was the biggest cog of this offseason, the biggest domino that needed to fall for the Cavs, and it sure looks like it. I mean, between Donovan's Instagram post and all the rumors circulating around there, I mean, it all seems to be coming together. I'm still not going to believe it until the ink has it has been signed on the dotted line, been put on the dotted line. But yeah, all indications so far, is that they are that they're going to sign him. So cool, awesome.
So what's the next domino?
Yeah, so that's the interesting question, because it sounds like all the reports are saying, Donovan Mitchell does not want Jared Allen is his favorite teammate of all time. That's what people are reporting, is that Donovan Mitchell considers Jared Allen to be his favorite all-time teammate. Yeah. And so they don't want Donovan Mitchell doesn't want to get rid of Jared Allen. So I think Jared Allen is probably with the Cavs next year. Nobody's saying anything about Darius Garland, but remember, the report was that if they sign Mitchell to an extension, Garland wants a trade.
Bye.
So what's going to happen there? There's so much to unpack here with, are we going to do that? Are we going to listen to Donovan Mitchell when it comes to that? Or are we going to say, hey, Evan Mobley's our center now, and Jared Allen, we got to figure out something to do with? There's so much that goes into what's going to happen with what they decide to do. But I think the other thing is, I think a lot of it is going to be dependent on who they bring in as a coach. Or that's the big storyline right now for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Who are you bringing in as a coach? And do you trust them? Because I think this overarching theme right now is, do we think we can run it back with this big four in quotations, with the right coach? Will the right coach make the big four more successful? And that I'm really interested. I'm really interested in that, to see how they decide to approach that.
Yeah. I mean, it's I mean, clearly JB had a problem when it came to the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Jackets in a sense that we just got done talking about, right? There's so much talent on this team that maybe it just needs the right guy to put everything together. So yeah, it's certainly a possibility for sure. I can agree with that.
I don't know. It's real interesting, because we've got the Blue Jackets and Cavs that we cover a lot and we talk about a lot, and really they're not in the same situation, in that the Cavs are in a much more pressure to win now situation. And that's how it's going to go. And they're going to have to sign this superstar and whatever. And the Jackets are probably looked at as a little bit more of a project. But man,
But it all still
organizationally,
needs to come together, though. It all still needs to come together.
and that's what it is. It's organizational outlook for these two teams. It's organizationally, how are we going to approach this? And it'll be really interesting to watch kind of the juxtaposition of the two as they go through this offseason. All right, Joey, I'm giving you the mic for 60 seconds. Guardians check-in. Go.
Tough ending to the road trip, to be honest. I think that the boys have been on the road for a while. I saw the broadcast today was saying that the Guardians have played the fewest home games in the major leagues.
Yes.
But also have the best home record and the most home wins in the major leagues. So looking for some upcoming big home since I think they're home through the weekend at least, through the Toronto series. But again, I think the team's looking fine. I mean, they're losing a couple games here and there, which is, kind of a different point of the season that we've been in for a while. But in almost every one of those games, aside from the Saturday game in Toronto, they're coming back and like putting up a good fight. So I think, the same concerns that we've been talking about all season, depth at starting pitching is a huge one. Again, that might get answered with Gavin Williams coming back, who looks to be pretty close. He's had a couple rehab starts in AAA. So maybe we see him before the All-Star break. But I think you're still looking at hopefully finding some type of starting pitching in the trade before the trade deadline here.
Again, the rumor about the Guardians is a mid-level starting pitcher and a corner outfielder. That's what they are looking for as we approach the trade deadline. But listen, one of the things that I'll just jump in with, Joe, it's a long season. And right now they're in the midst of like a 500 stretch. That's where they're at. They win some series and they lose some series, and they don't lose a lot of series, but they lost the one to Toronto and obviously taking the loss in game one against Seattle tonight. You're in that stretch where you're just fighting to stay kind of in that 500 mark, but it's what they've been able to do to this point. And it's what I'm real interested to see how they're able to do moving forward is how do you bounce back? How do you take these 500 stretches? Don't worry about them. Don't let them get you down. Don't let them make you feel any kind of way, and bounce back and continue to go winning series. Because really all the Guardians have to do at this point from now until the end of the season is just win the majority of their series. Just 2-1 is great for the Guardians at this point. 2-1, just 2-2 or 2-1 is great for the Guardians for the rest of the year. And that's what they got to get to.
If you're just good in that, if you follow that same kind of mantra with just your division, I think you're fine in the rest of the season.
Yeah.
If you take care of the Central, which again, they've been pretty 500 against the Central over this past month. So if you can really turn around against the Central, I think that's your ticket in. Again, your record's really good. That Seattle team streaking, but I think you can lock in that second seed in the AL, which would be huge. Get the first round bye in the playoffs. So there's a lot of things really going well for this team. I also love seeing the fan attendance at these games.
It's great.
Tuesday night game tonight, a really packed house for a Tuesday. So that's something not talked about enough and very exciting to see.
So the Florida Panthers just scored a goal to make it 4-3 in the third. So 15 minutes to go, and we'll see what happens.
Boy.
I was going to go Browns. There's nothing to talk about with the Browns. We'll figure out. They're going to sign Amari Cooper. They got to figure that out. And otherwise, everything. Again, it's just all the same shit with the goddamn Browns. And I don't want to talk about it. I don't know. I was on the Slack channel for the OBR, and Barry, I love Barry. He posted a YouTube video of, I guess Colt McCoy has some kind of fucking podcast that he does with AQ Shipley and some other random people. And they were all like, well, the Browns can't compete in the AFC North. Like, there's no way they can compete in the AFC North. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck has happened that makes you think that the Browns got worse? Like, it's what I don't understand. What do you think has happened that you think the Browns got worse from last year?
Right.
Everybody's doing this thing with Joe. This is the thing that pisses me off. I feel like Frank from Barstool. I want to chew on my glasses. I'm not going to do it.
Speaking of Barstool, if the Oilers win the Cup, there's something in Dave Portnoy's water because he put a lot of money on both them and the Celtics to win their respective championships.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably something in his water.
Yeah.
I don't understand. It's what we talked about it on the show last season for the Browns. What pisses me off is we get to this point where you have to either act like Joe Flacco was God's gift to quarterbacking last year, or you have to act like he sucked. He didn't do either. Joe Flacco wasn't nearly as good as anybody is saying that he was.
Right.
But he also wasn't as bad as some of the people want to say he was. He was fine. Joe Flacco was just fine. He was fine. But like, I read a damn like an ESPN thing that was like the Browns' biggest mistake this offseason was letting Joe Flacco go. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Stop it.
Joe Flacco threw like 12 pick sixes last year. Yeah. Like, even in the games they won, Joe was throwing a lot of picks.
Right.
And he threw a lot of touchdowns and a lot of picks. Why are we doing this, though? Why are we basing the success that we think the Cleveland Browns are going to have off of whether or not they have Joe Flacco? Even if they sign Joe Flacco again to come in and back them up, he's the backup to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is the only factor in this whole thing. If Deshaun Watson is healthy, the Cleveland Browns are a Super Bowl contender, and I don't know what anybody else is talking about. They've got the defense that is only better from last year. They're only better from last year. The defense is better than they were last year with another year under Jim Schwartz. And the offense is going to be, what are you going to get Nick Chubb back? Is that going to make you worse? You're going to get Deshaun Watson back and you're worse? What's everybody talking about?
Maybe.
Maybe. All right, sorry. I just been so worked up about this. I don't know what these people are talking about. I keep seeing these things that are like, oh, the Browns are going to go 8-9, and they're not nearly good enough to compete. And I'm like, they won 11 games last year with backups at every position. What are you talking about? You remember when your tackles got hurt and you had to go with backups? And you won 11 games, but they're going to be worse this year because they're all going to be. Yeah. They're going to be healthy this year, so they're going to be worse. Obviously, that makes a boatload of fucking sense. All right, Chad, real quick, because I know Chad's got to go and I know Joe's got to go. So real quick, let's wrap this thing up. Chad, cheer of the week.
Ooh, man, I got a couple. First one goes to the Dutch soccer fans. Did you see that clip going around of that parade they went into the Euros?
Yes.
Cup, you guys got to watch that. I mean, there's like 100,000 people in unison just fucking dancing and partying. Like, good on you, dude. Another cheers goes to me for getting a new cell phone case, one with a kickstand, so I don't even have to hold this fucking thing anymore. Good for me. Good for me.
Go you.
I had another cheers. Oh yeah, cheers to Willie Mays. I don't know if
we already did. We did that one. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cheers to Willie Mays too. And you know, what an incredible ball player. Bare minimum top 10 of all time. And
top 5.
Although I don't want to make light of a situation, but Steve Levy, I think he misspoke on the Stanley Cup intermission report, and he goes, Willie Mays, gone too soon. I go,
he was 93. He was 93. No, he's not.
How long were you hoping for?
How much longer did you want him to live, Steve?
It's the same thing. People that left. Listen, I'm never going to make light of somebody dying, but I remember when Betty White died and people were like, no, not Betty White. And I'm like, she was 100.
No.
How long do you think he was going to die?
Or
how long do you think she was going to live? Gone too soon.
Bob Barker had the best death ever. Maybe not the actual death.
He really did.
He died right at 99. He didn't go over to 100, you know?
Gone too soon. Bob Barker. Gone too soon.
Too soon.
Joe, real quick, cheer of the week.
Nailed it.
Fucking nailed it.
I'm good. I got hot boys.
Cheers to beer.
Cheers to beer. Cheers to camaraderie. Chad, hope Delaware's a blast. Cheers to all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day to all the fellas. And
fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah. I'm not dead, but
all right, Joe.
See y'all.
That was my cheers. So see you, Joe. My cheer of the week was just going to go to dads. Chad, you're a great dad. I love my kids. I love being a good dad. All the good dads out there. What a great Father's Day weekend I had with my kids, and I know you did on your vacation because you spent your Father's Day weekend in Baltimore. Sounded like you had a great ass time,
dude. Amazing.
But all the good dads out there, big time cheers to you guys. Loving your kids, loving your wives, being there. Really, not everybody's got that, and I'm not gonna. I won't dive into that. But not everybody's got that.
Right.
And so, whether you've got a great dad or whether you are one, it should never be taken for granted. So, shout out to all the dads out there. Anyways, that's going to do it for us here on episode 217 of the Garage Beers podcast. We're going to get out of here, but not before we give our thanks. First thanks goes out to Mark Scheig for coming on, hanging out with us. Beat reporter for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Go follow him online at Mark_Scheig. And again, I'm not joking. Mark breaks news about as well as anybody with the Blue Jackets. So when it comes time for free agency to start and you want to know the latest on the Jackets or the trade deadline or whenever you want to know the latest, go over to Mark's profile, turn on the notifications. He will get you squared away with some of the best breaking news that anybody gives you. Shout out to Mark. Shame on us again for having him on 4 years into this show, but we'll definitely have him on again. So big thanks to Mark Scheig for coming on with us. Our next thank you goes out to the OBR. The OBR hosts us, the Orange and Brown Report, the best Browns coverage, the biggest Browns and oldest Browns independent network in Cleveland. Make sure you are subscribed to the OBR everywhere you can subscribe, whether it's the website, YouTube, or Twitch, or whatever. Shout out to the OBR. And our biggest thank you goes out to all of you, whether you joined us live here tonight, and the comment section was live tonight. So shout out to you guys that joined us live tonight, or whether you're joining us on Apple or Spotify or iHeart or wherever you catch your podcast later in the week. We love you. We appreciate your support. That's going to do it for episode 217 of the Garage Beers podcast. Go follow us at the Garage Beers on all the socials and tell your damn friends that we have a good time here and they need to come hang out with us. Make sure they're subscribed to us as well. But that's going to do it for episode 217. Until next week for episode 218. For Joey down in Nashville, Tennessee at Garage Beers Joe. For Chad, who's currently in Delaware and really has to pee at Garage Beers Chad. I am Michael Keefe at Garage Beers Mike. Again, follow the show at the Garage Beers on all the socials. And until next week, thank you and cheers, everybody.